I get it. And I think
that is a big problem here.
so. If me and you are being positive dudes right now, though, like moving forward, how can we make sure that the next one is not as terrible?
So there's a bunch of things you can do. One, and these are some of the lessons from this crisis that we need to draw on. So one, you got to make sure that everybody gets access to healthcare, right? And we were able to put in place policies to make sure that everybody in this country can get tested for free, which is critical, so that you're not thinking they're saying, hey, if I get tested, it's going to cost me literally thousands of dollars if I'm not going to get tested. But it doesn't mean treatment's free. So if you're one of those folks on a ventilator for 10 days, you're going to be looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars in a bill if you don't have insurance. Hundreds. You're just bankrupting families. You got to make sure that everybody gets access to insurance in this country. One. Two, you got to make sure that our systems are actually able to do broad-based testing rapidly. And the next round of this, whether it's this virus that comes back in the fall or a new one, it's going to take some time to stand up a test. That will take time, but you can, in fact, have the mechanisms put in place to do that mass production quickly. Three, you actually do things like move far more aggressively on the social distancing, right? Because we know now what happens if you don't. Four, you actually do things like have an
and it's working. And it's working. Correct.
It is working. The challenge that we have there on social distancing is it lags by about 2 weeks. So one of the big challenges with this virus is you can contract it and not show any signs of it for roughly 5 days. But in those 5 days that you're asymptomatic, and some people never show any symptoms, but in the 5 days to week plus that you're asymptomatic, you can be spreading it to other people, but not know it, right? No fault of yours, you just don't know it. But if that's the case, let's say you do become symptomatic, you become symptomatic 5 days after you contracted, it then takes roughly a week for you to get so bad that you need hospitalization.
And then for us to get the data and test the data against a model.
Well, so that means that the folks that you're seeing in the hospital today contracted the virus in Massachusetts, contracted the virus before the shelter-in-place order actually went into effect. So that's where they're saying, well, some experts expect that you'll see this kind of surge take place in the next 10 days or so, because that's going to be where people before the last rounds, before the social distancing took effect. And we have seen data from across the country where if you do engage in this really strict social distancing, it does flatten the ability of the rate of infection. But even in Seattle, so the key statistic here is the rate at which one infected person infects somebody else. And it's a really tough estimate because there's a lot of folks that we don't know that are asymptomatic, so haven't been tested. So the expectation is that one person infects far more people than the data indicates as now. But as of now, the data indicates that one person infects close to 3 other people. What Seattle's been able to do is to drop that, cut that almost in half to about 1.4 other people. One person infects 1.4 other people, which is that's a huge change, right? You've cut that rate in half. The challenge is you're still infecting more than one other person.
I know.
And what you need to do is to get that down below 1 so that you can actually start to decrease the rate of people that are infected. And that's still going to take time. I do think that what we'll have, we're learning an awful lot of lessons on this now, and hopefully those lessons will, and they should inform our policies going forward so that if this does come back in the fall, which there will in all likelihood not be a vaccine for this in the fall, but if this does come back in the fall, we're far better prepared for it, and I think we will be.